Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks for coming today, everybody. And we've got sort of a new course I'd like to go on. I'm just sort of basically calling it ethics. I mean, there's, uh, that's kind of a wide term, even what does ethics mean, all this kind of stuff. So I don't know, you could just, but I just thought it would be a good way to start a good class and good course on Buddhist vows and commitments. And so we're just going to cover the sort of what you could say sort of the two main traditions, the Hinayana and Mahayana, so the sort of Pratimoksha and Bodhisattva vows and commitments, not the tantric vows and commitments you get with Anuttara Yoga, Mahayana Yoga practice in Highest Yoga Tantra, because obviously this is sutric class. We don't go into that. It's of course sort of public. But I would like to obviously teach on that or share and have discussions on those kinds of vows one day as well. Yeah, so this is, anyway, I'm really excited to do this. And that's why I spent as long as I did talking about karma and emptiness, so we have a proper understanding of how vows work. So anyway, let's just get started here with Heart Sutra, and we'll do our meditation, and then I can just do these sort of preliminary presentations on this. Okay, Heart Sutra. Yay, homage to Professor Wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir and Mass Vulture's Mountain, together with great assembly of monks and nuns and great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Sri Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. And through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Sri Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Sri Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this in all phenomena of emptiness having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no eye element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest and complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata, Mam Gata Gata Paragata Parasamgata Bodhisoha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Sri Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O son of lineages like that, since it's like that, just as you have revealed. In that way, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and then the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Sri Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, demons, gods, humans, demons, and spirits, were delighted. How did I say God? I'm practicing too much chit here, but as I say gods and demons, it's just like an instant anxiety. Let me read this. It's gods, humans, demigods, and spirits were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. There we go. And chit, of course, as you know, comes right from the Heart Sutra, from the chapter 6 of Prajnaparamita. Wonderful. Okay, so let's take a moment now just to do our opening prayers and a bit of our meditation. We can visualize ourselves seated in a wide open space here, ground like lapis lazuli, comfortable to sit on, and ourselves surrounded by all sentient beings, starting with the people closest to us and moving out sort of in concentric circles outward to those people and beings that we don't know. So representing our feminine side, our mother on our left, representing our masculine side, father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, people we like the least, have issues with in front of us as objects of healing, meditation, prayers, and compassion. And moving up from there, people from all over the world, all different countries, cultures, and backgrounds, all of us here together as a family. The animal realm, the whole sort of vast ecosystems of Earth. We can think of the Earth, sky, and seas. So you watch those Planet Earth shows and you just see it's just amazing, just the natural environment, just from just little bugs all the way up to huge mammals and so forth, just all the diverse life forms, all interacting and interdependent with each other. We can feel that that's here with us. And then the spirit world's here with us as well in a similar way. All the different, as they like to call it, non-human entities, different sort of spirit beings, bardo beings, in between the six realms of cyclic existence and in different realms, ethereal, astral, elemental planes, and so forth. And celestial beings, gods, and demigods. That's from there are three realms of desire, form, and formless realm. And finally, countless beings in lower states of rebirth, hungry ghost beings and hell beings, all the different hells as well. So a lot of sentient beings, and we're all here together meditating and practicing together to get enlightened, which is sort of the key to all of that, solving all of our problems and sufferings. So again, for this course, again, I'd like to sort of us to visualize Buddha Shakyamuni, because again, we're going back to the Buddha himself and all his teachings on Vinaya, vows, and ethics. So it's nice just to sort of connect with the Buddha, keep it simple. It's kind of like almost like original Buddhism here. So in the sky in front of us, just beautiful blue dome of a cloudless sky, sort of luminous sky. We are visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni sort of floating in midair. And just like a big sun, he's made out of golden energy. We can have him, if you like, on a lion throne, multicolored lotus, moon and sun seat, if you like. Otherwise, just keep it simple. You can have him floating, just made out of golden energy, three robes of a monk, lotus position, left hand's in the meditative posture, holding and begging both medicinal nectar, and right hand is touching the earth with the subduing mudra. And then at his heart, showing the unity of Sutra and Tantra, our path as Vajrayana practitioners, we have his Sambhogakaya, or higher form, angelic form, Vajradhara, and his partner, Vajradhatu Ishvari. And they have sapphire blue bodies, and he's in lotus position. She's straddling him, their arms around his neck, and he's got, they both wear crowns and jewelry and ornaments and silks and so forth. He's holding a bell in his left hand, or jade or vajra scepter in his right. She has a skull cup with medicinal nectar in her left hand, and curved chopper knife, rigu, cleaver in her right. And between them is a hum letter, or in English, HUM, representing Dharmakaya, omniscient mind of Buddhas. And that's blue, softly radiating out the five elemental colors there: white, blue, green, red, and yellow. Okay, taking refuge. I know all sentient beings until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I know all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I know all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Now, setting our intention here. So we've taken refuge, sort of getting clear on sort of why we're here, what we're doing now. We're just making sure that our intention is the highest intention possible of bodhicitta. Everything we're doing is for the healing and enlightenment of all beings without exception. So through the virtues we collect by giving and other perfections, we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. The virtues we collect by giving and other perfections, we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving and other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Okay, so just quick purification. White light is coming down from the Hum letter at the heart of Buddha here. It's like soft white light. It's purifying all the beings around us, sort of lighting everyone up, all of their people's shadows and negativities all being dispelled. And for us, we can also think it just sort of nectar is coming down on us as well, almost like you're pouring a nice big cold glass of milk in the morning. And our body, again, flushing out all of our negativities, obscurations, obstructions, obstacles. And we and all sentient beings are getting all crystal clear here. Now the blessing light turns color now. Now we can just visualize it being sort of golden yellow. And this is the empowerment. We've done purification. Now we're doing virtue power. Coming down, sort of powering us up like in a video game or just charging your cell phone. You know, it's like me, I always push my iPhone to like 3%. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to run out. So just plug it into the wall while you're having dinner, something starts getting charged up. We're getting all charged up with positive spiritual energy here, making us glow. So it's like sunlight coming down, sunbeams, and golden nectar into our body as well. So it's all like little suns or stars, us and all sentient beings on this vast plane are all shining golden light here, being super positive. So think of all the compassion, wisdom, and power going into us. And by discharging this out, we can also generate 4 immeasurable thoughts right now. So just in our heart, generating love, just wanting all beings to be happy, compassion, which is not wanting to suffer, wanting to remove the suffering of others. Joy, childlike joy, innocent joy. And they say of nirvana, sort of another everlasting joy. But we can think of this as I always do. I always sort of give the Spinozist or the Nietzschean slant on this, sort of like a powerful, positive, affirmative power. In other words, being happy no matter what. Whatever life throws at you, you can affirm it. You can be happy. That kind of joy that kids have. And equanimity, again, not being beyond hope and fear, beyond attachment and anger. So just sort of an open, warm, friendly attitude towards all beings, seeing them all as equals, all as friends. Okay. We do 7 limbs now. Demonstration, showing respect to Buddha Shakyamuni, just sort of our enlightened self here. Making offerings, so opening our heart with generosity. Again, just so offering up beautiful flowers or lights. Confessing and rejoicing, so standing up to Buddha and all sentient beings here, saying, hey, here I am, all my negativities, all my mistakes, all the stupid bad things I've done. I'm going to overcome all of these, purify them, get past them, outgrow them. And rejoicing, just being happy for the work that we're all doing here, all of us, all sentient beings, gradually moving towards enlightenment. Every moment, a moment of self-overcoming. We can feel it holding up in our hands. We're just sending up a lion throne and a golden 8-spoke Dharma wheel, just set sort of dissolve into Buddha. Just please, Buddha, always stay with us, always teach us, always appear as our guides and gurus and teachers in our life. always appear in my dreams, appear as all the different Buddhas and angels, guiding me, protecting me, helping me on this path. And finally, dedicating everything that we do, all the virtue, towards the awakening of all beings. Okay, last sort of heart opening here with mandala offering a purified universe. We can visualize the Vedic universe, if you like, with Mount Mira, different continents and precious substances, different offering goddesses and so forth, or just all beautiful things in the world. Just visualize a completely, almost like a Eden-esque sort of almost Elysian world, beautiful pastoral world where everything is beautiful, blissful, and perfect and happy. And we hold this at our heart and offer it up to Buddha Shakyamuni and all holy beings. We go the ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers. Great mountain, four lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land, and offer thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. We send forth this jeweled bando to you, precious Guru. So Mandala Kamir Tiyami. That's energy sort of put out there and shared. And again, that's sort of the key for final blessings or mind transformation or empowerment. Golden lights and nectars, again, coming from the Hum syllable at the heart between Vajradhara and Vajradhatu Ishvari at Buddha's heart. Golden light coming down, sunlight, sunbeams into us. Beautiful summer day. Just go out at midday, just the sunset in the park, and just feel the sun on your face. Same kind of feel here. All this golden energy coming, just empowering us and all beings around us here. In particular, we really feel that bodhicitta is being sort of communicated, bodhicitta energy going into us. That makes our bodhicitta motivation stronger. Everything we want to do, we want to be for the healing and awakening liberation of all beings. Request Buddha Shakyamuni, please bless our body, speech, and mind. Precious Guru Buddha Shakyamuni. His mind is synthesis of all Buddha jewels, speech is synthesis of all Dharma jewels, and mind is synthesis. Body synthesis of all Sangha jewels, speech is synthesis of all Dharma jewels, and mind is synthesis of all Buddha jewels. So all three jewels sort of coming together here in body, speech, and mind of Buddha. Please bring this into my heart. So you can feel that Buddha now starts to melt into light, sort of getting smaller and smaller, just sort of like the sun starting to sort of get a little tinier, becoming just like a little star. And he dissolves into his heart, into the divine couple, Vajradhara and Vajradhatu Ishvari. And we can feel that they now gets really small, but the size of a small sunflower seed or so. So beautiful blue light, kind of like a little piece of sapphire blue diamond. And now they come to the crown of our head. A little blue sort of shooting star comes down, just about 6 inches above our head. And turn around the same direction as us and slowly descend into our crown chakra and just in front of our spines, like a leaf falling, come down to our heart. And once they reach their heart, they dissolve into us, right into our mind. Our mind and their mind become one. That all the blessing power of all the Buddhas comes directly into our mind, right into our soul, into our heart here. All the power, the wisdom, and compassion, love. And you can just feel great, great bliss and joy here. Sense of complete spaciousness and totality. No dissatisfaction, complete fulfillment. So that kind of rest or bliss or well-being and peace. Sort of a cessation of all want and dissatisfaction and bliss. And at the same time, sort of a nice creative power coming out of joy. wanting to connect to all beings and share this energy with them. Okay, so just coming out of meditation here. Okay, good. Well, here we go. Next class here. So, next course on ethics. So, great. So I thought today, just sort of the structure of the course. I'll have to do some recordings when I'm away at work, but I do want to do a little bit something a little bit different this class, whereas I want to leave. Um, uh, I guess, enough time for discussion for this. So because this isn't a question of like, let's say emptiness from just like, it's, principles or philosophy of a position where you're giving things and you have to, it's like logic, you have to figure it out and, get an answer and understand it. And then it's like checking, is this it? Yeah, yeah. This, of course, with all of these things, once you get to dealing with vows and commitments and ethics, this is the nitty gritty. And so it's very practical, of course, very pragmatist. And and of course, I would say pragmatist and therapeutic. There's how this stuff's applied is, of course, really, really relative, depending on history and culture in people's own paths. I mean, we have a teacher, we get the teachings, but how this sort of cashes out in your own life can sometimes be pretty individual. And so this is where, as a Sangha or as a community, we really help each other out in our understanding of these vows. Like I say, some of them, it's a little more practical, but you always see in Judaism, all these old rabbis sort of like arguing, discussing on what Talmudic law is. Oh my God, what does this mean? What do you think? The same thing with Buddhist ethics a lot is it's just as a community, where it's just like, okay, what does this really mean? How do we apply it? What happens when we apply it? What do you think? How does it work for you? How does it not work for you? Does this make sense anymore, these rules? So, we've talked about this before, that, well, here, let me just put that to a side. I was going to say, talk a little bit about the Vinaya here, but I guess the only point I'm making is that the Vinaya was a practical thing, that, but it was like you got the three baskets. So of course we've got the Abhidharma and Sutric teachings, and then the other other main third division of Buddhist teachings when he was alive was the Vinaya, which is all the ethical rules, for monks and nuns in particular. But of course, there's also all the rules for lay people, just people who aren't ordained. And what's interesting is, of course, over Buddha's life, like over the 50 years he was teaching, and of course afterwards, this isn't an exhaustive list. Things are always being added to it all the time, and they were being all these ethical rules that Buddha gave in the Vinaya during his lifetime were added for very specific reasons, almost like case studies. And so, they start with 10 rules, and then of course they need more, and everyone's breaking them. So you have sets and subsets, and then whatever, there's this huge wreck at some monastery, and Buddha has to come in. They're like, okay, this was a disaster. We're adding 20 more rules because of you guys, right? And then what was interesting is the way human beings are. Freud always said for every law that, you got a taboo. Within the law itself, there is the loophole that people use to get through it, to enjoy breaking the law, right? So what's interesting is, of course, Buddha will give a law. I read a really good article years ago on the Vinaya. He'd give laws, and then all the sneaky teenage monks would find ways to get around them and break it. And then you'd have to get a whole new set of ones to do with it. So before you know it, there's hundreds of rules, but they're not just people sitting around thinking of these things. They're in response to practical problems, solving practical problems. And again, what is it? Is to promote happiness and reduce suffering. So we have all these rules, Vinaya rules, because sort of ethical rules to prevent people from hurting each other, hurting themselves, and I guess you could say to protect people, not just to heal, but to protect people. So it's sort of a work in progress. So that's what's interesting, is that we have all these rules, but technically as Buddhists we can even invent new ones within the spirit, or sort of elaborate or add different layers to these ethical vows and commitments, you could say, which is interesting. Like in Hegel's Science of Logic, what he said is that within his system, it's complete, but you can keep adding new stuff because there's always room within the inner articulations, inner space to put new stuff. So it's kind of like the same thing here. Is we ourselves can come to new understandings of these vows and commitments and add in a little bit, because it'll still be within the spirit of these kinds of rules. And as you know, these aren't, we call these precepts or vows or commitments. They're not laws. So that's the difference between Buddhism and let's say the Abrahamic faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Is Buddha isn't a God. We're saying these are the laws that you can't break, and if you break them, there's sort of like a judicial thing where you're being judged. It's like you're arrested and you put on trial. You've got a jury, the angels and God's there, and it's like you're guilty. You broke this, and oh my God, I have to give an account to myself. Like in the Old Testament, I'm before God, the angels, I blew. It's not like that. No, without making it sound too vulgar and crass, what we're going over in ethics with Buddhist system, but again, I should use this, but I'm going to use, I don't want to make it too vulgar or silly, but it's almost like Buddha is a quote unquote life coach or your fitness instructor at the gym, where it's like, hey, whatever, I've got, like ongoing heart disease or problems with diabetes. I want to lose weight. I want to get into shape. I go in and the fitness instructor is like, hey, but is there, whatever, Saturday morning, 8 a.m, he's like, I've got the whole exercise regime. We've got a nutritionist here, and we're giving all the rules. So this is up to you to fulfill your side of the bargain. We're here to help you pump iron and run the treadmill. And we've got the nutritionist here. If you follow these kinds, this sort of regimen, this whole sort of program that we have, we'll get a result, sort of this therapeutic result where you're going to get back into shape and get healthy. That's kind of more like the model we're looking at when we're going into Buddhist ethics, which is why we don't have anything when we're talking about this stuff, an idea of quote unquote guilt, which is more of a Semitic concept, the idea that there's a law that you are transgressing and taboo that you're breaking. That concept doesn't operate in this ethical system. Okay, we can have shame, we can have regret, just in the same way as if I have spent all this money on my nutritionist and trainer, and then, oh, that's great. And at the end, oh man, see you next week. And then I run around the corner, I'm eating cheesecake, I'm going to McDonald's, I'm totally picking out, and I'm in my car, and then they drive by and they're like, oh my God, like, you were just at the gym, like, what are you doing? Your diet. And I'm like, oh, I feel terrible. I'm busted. And they're like, oh, how are you ever going to get healthy? Plus you paid all this money. What are you doing to yourself? Like, that's more like that kind of model of ethics in a lot of ways when we're dealing with Buddhist ethics. And of course, like with karma, things will produce like seeds, good or bad results. But like what I'm saying is that the overall idea here is one of an art of living or self cultivation in terms of ethics. That's what we talk about vows and commitments. Commitments are good habits or things that we have to do to promote a certain sense of spiritual well-being or happiness. And vows, a lot, again, are things that we're vowing to do, habits that we are sort of saying that we're going to do, things we're going to do, and also whereas things, bad habits that we're not going to do, things that we do already that we want to outgrow or let go of or not do. So that's kind of like the overall idea, sort of the flavor, I guess, of Buddhist ethics that we're going to go into. So here we go. So after a little bit of an introduction here, that's sort of superficial introduction. I'll give you a little bit of introduction of the Vinaya here. So, okay, so ethical life. So nirvana, we've just seen by discussing, having all of our courses on emptiness here, is the idea of escaping from samsara. That's surpassing or transcending samsara, in particular your own samsara, escaping from your own bad thoughts, your own body and mind, which are contaminated, producing suffering. So it says, I put here for, okay, so, samsara is our body, we're sort of, again, with the changing suffering, we've been sort of born into this world. Our body's been put together. It's an impermanent thing, a composite thing, our body and mind. And it grows a little while and then starts to falling apart. And you get the true sufferings of old age, sickness, and death. Our mind is constantly trying to achieve or maintain a state of satisfaction in this state of samsara, but is always failing. So basically, we have no control over our body and mind the way it is right now, and this is why we suffer. Okay, so nirvana is the idea that, the sort of the end point of Buddhism here, the sort of completed point, is we want to escape from this condition here, escape from the sort of the nature condition that we find ourselves in right now. And we want to be in a mental place where we're incapable of having bad thoughts, we're incapable of suffering, we're in a state of peace, okay? So this is the idea put here that we might have pain, but we no longer suffer. In other words, our mind is no longer disturbed. So Arya Kema has that great thing where she's like, says that famous Theravada nun, where she says, when you reach a state of nirvana, when these higher Buddhist cessations, you can have pain, but not suffering. Right? Like things can happen, your body's falling apart, but you're in a state of peace in your life. Okay, so you don't have all these bad thoughts, judgments, and submental sufferings in your life. So that's what we're shooting for as Buddhists. So in a lot of ways, the juice to take us there is not just, of course, meditation and concentration and meditating on emptiness. These two things, of course, we know. There's concentration and wisdom, so shamatha and vipassana. But the other missing component is, of course, ethics, right? So these represent the three higher trainings in which we can slot all Buddhist teachings. So the foundation for our meditation and understanding of emptiness is ethics. So if we want to get to nirvana, if we want to get to the state of mental peace, want to get to a sort of state where there's no longer true sufferings, the foundation for that, the foundation for a house, the concrete foundation, so to speak, the table that holds everything up is our own Vinaya, is our ethics, is our moral discipline. Okay, so what does Vinaya mean? There's three different meanings of this sutra. One is open teachings of the Buddha. These are teachings that he gave to everybody through his life. Two, it's a short book. You can actually get the Vinaya. I mean, this is Sutra's a collection. You can get it as a book. And we also call it as one of the great collections of the Buddhist sutras. Like I said, one of the three main teachings or three baskets of Buddhist teachings, okay? I put here, so it's in Vinaya, it is a lot of medicine for kleshas or ethics here, sort of the medicine for getting rid of delusions or kleshas. So kleshas, we know, like Amara or demon, internal demon in your mind. Kleshas, any thought which disturbs your mind, in particular your peace of mind. So anytime we're sort of in a state of equilibrium in our life, in our day-to-day life, but then we are quote unquote disturbed, like distracted from this peace, that's sort of defined as a delusion or a klesha. So if you're walking, let's say as a little test, someone gives you a really, like I've got my cup of tea here and they fill it right to the brim, and they get you to walk around on the sidewalk like you're walking around, oh, I don't want to spill any bit. Anything that would make you spill the tea is kind of like, by analogy, like a klesha. So if your mind's kind of like a nice, peaceful, like cup of water that's not spilling anywhere, anything that would cause you to get, like to get off balance and start pouring water out of your cup is like a klesha. So klesha is something that's disturbing the peace of your peace of mind at any point, right? And of course, as we know throughout our day when we're meditating or whatever, these things are happening all the time. The strength of the klesha gives the strength of the disturbance. So of course, bad thoughts and these delusions are always causing unhappiness. And depending on the strength or intensity of these thoughts, or sort of karmic disturbances in your mind, that determines how much suffering or disturbance or distraction you're going to get. We used to call it, my friend Chuck and I, we call it a klesha attack. Like sometimes you have these horrible moods where all of a sudden you just get like super negative, like a klesha attack. It's like you're being attacked by your own demons or delusions. Sometimes it's quite small and easy to get over, but we all know sometimes you can have these klesha attack, like a bad mood attack, where it's all day and you just, the energy is so strong, you just can't get past it. Like even you go out for friends, like, hey, going out for lunch and stuff, but it's still kind of like food coloring in a cup of water. Like your mood is colored, like you can't even really enjoy your lunch, even when your friends are talking about something funny. It's all kind of that energy still in you. And then, of course, it passes through you at a certain point. But kleshas, there's sort of all different levels at which they can attach your peace of mind. So our ethics are a way of sort of solving this problem. So Vinaya in Sanskrit means discipline. So there are 7 rules function to discipline the mental afflictions and your senses, okay? So the other word they use in Tibetan is dulwa, which means to tame. So it's the idea of taming like a horse or a dog. So if Buddha is kind of like the dog whisperer, like Caesar Milan or something, and you're the misbehaving dog that he has to show up and fix. His techniques are, amongst other things, because he has all the meditation, but Lanois, the sort of rules to turn around the bad dog of your mind are the Vinaya rules, these vows and commitments. Okay, and you can see that, when you have someone like a dog or horse whisperer, they have a whole regime of behavior for that dog or horse. Right? So the Tibetan here for the Vinaya, the expression they always give is Dulwa ni ten dang antongpa nyo yin. I can never pronounce Tibetan, but I think that's it. And sort of the transliteration is discipline or Vinaya is Buddhist teaching. The teacher or Buddha actually is. That's sort of the direct literal translation, which means basically the translation is, if Vinaya is truly taught anywhere, I, the Buddha, am there. So Buddha would say is, if you're really teaching Vinaya and really trying, in other words, if you have a group of people that are really putting their best effort into living in accordance with Buddhist ethics and vows, then Buddha says, I am there in spirit. Because these people are trying to train their mind in a positive way to adopt what they should adopt to produce happiness and joy, and to abandon what they should have been, the negative karma and kleshas and bad habits that produce suffering. So if they're trying that, like they have that sort of little regime or sort of program, they're in that program together working on this, then it's kind of like we have a proper Buddhist community here. So they always see, I think it's, see, I don't know, you'll have to go on Wikipedia. It's either 3 or 7, maybe someone can come and correct, where they say you have to have ordained to actually say Buddhism has come to a country and you have a real Buddhist community. There has to be a small number of ordained people there, like monks or nuns. Like when we have Dharma centers, but technically we can't say Buddhism has arrived at a country until we have a small group of monks or nuns actually abiding by the monastic rules in a community. Then it's like, oh, Buddhism is here. We have an actual Buddhist center. So you can see what it means by analogy is you have people trying to live the Vinaya. And this is full-time people. So if they're ordained, this is their job, is to sort of embody the Vinaya for everybody else and to sort of light that light or lamp in the space, that place where they're living. So we're not monks or nuns here, ordained people, but we're taking on these Buddhist ethics to best of our ability as lay practitioners. So by analogy, not the same thing, but if we're seriously trying to keep our vows and commitments, then we can say that Buddha is here with us. We are sort of in spirit establishing a Buddhist community here. So for the Vinaya, there's two root sutras you can see, sort of where Buddha has a lot of these rules. One's called Sutra of Vowed Morality for fully ordained monks, and the other one is Sutra of Vowed Morality for fully ordained nuns. There's also 3 commentaries you can get on this. One is Essence of Ocean of Vinaya by Tsongkhapa, of course, founder of our Gelugpa tradition, who is famous for really reestablishing or sort of getting everybody excited about being monks and nuns again. Gelugpa tradition, meaning virtuous tradition, is the idea in the 1400s where Tsongkhapa said, you know, if you really want to be a real serious Buddhist student, you should be a monk or a nun. And there's still in our tradition, as you know, a real impetus, maybe not in our specific community, but if you're a Gelugpa, if you really want to be a good Gelugpa, you should get ordained. You know, it's not necessary, but there's sort of like a little bit of a push that if you're really serious as a way of trying to live the Vinaya and the Hinayana path, you should really go sort of all in and become ordained. The other one is by famous Gelugpa Lama Dharmabhadra, as we know, who famous great tantric master as well. He wrote a commentary on the Vinaya called Daymaker, also sense of it being called, the title being called Sunshine. Again, why? Because your vows and commitments are like the sun, bringing light into your life, light of truth, light of happiness, light of wisdom. And the other one is Choni Lama, who was the previous incarnation of Pavanka Rinpoche, wrote a commentary called Wish Fulfilling Jewels. So there's a lot of different commentaries on the Vinaya vows and commitments. Okay, so there's 4 parts to keeping vows from being damaged. So we'll keep coming back to these things, but I'm going to give you just a little bit of an outline of the kind of attitude we have to have when we're going over our vows and commitments. So the first one is just the idea of we're going to be taking, technically a lot of us are practitioners, we have these vows and commitments already, but even if you want to start taking them again, or you're just entering the Buddha Dharma and be taking them, we always have to know what our vows and commitments are. We'll be breaking them and not even following them if we don't know what they are. But also we want to know how not to break them, how not to damage them, how to take them seriously. So there's sort of 4 parts to that. 4 parts to keep our vows from being damaged. 1, relying upon an outer support, which is a monastic precept. In other words, we need a teacher, we need a Lama, we need a guru, we need a Buddhist teacher as a support to give us the vows, to explain them to us, to transmit them to us, and to be like the teacher to help us live them as an art of living. Number 2, relying upon an inner support, which is a pure intention. In other words, being serious on living these vows, making them a part of your life, not an interesting curiosity or an intellectual thing, but the same thing as just like having a diet and exercise regime. I go for a jog every morning. I have a kale beet smoothie in my vitamins in the morning. It's the same kind of seriousness, therapeutic and spiritual seriousness we have by having a pure intention on keeping our vows. So the outer support, the outer container is our teacher, and by extension, our community. The inner support is our intention or our whole attitude towards our vows. 3, having a good understanding of factors that work. In other words, know your vows, how they're broken, repaired, modified, so forth. So having just an understanding of what the vows are, and again, how they work, the pragmatic dimensions, how to keep them, how they work, how they don't work, different ways of understanding them, different ways of applying them, knowing the ones you have difficulty keeping or can't keep, so you want to work on those, knowing the ones that are easy to keep, but not getting too cocky with them, so to speak. So I guess you'd say having the whole breakdown, the whole system of what the vows are. And number 4 is mastering monastic practices. So of course, we don't have this, which we should in the West, but this is the monastic practice. Of course, if you're a monk or nun, you'll be living these, which is number 1, sojung, twice a month. Number 2, the 3-month retreats, doing sort of set close retreats in the community. And 3, release of summer retreat, which is a celebration, having sort of like they have this, where they have like a rainy monsoon retreat, and at the end of it have a big celebration that you've done the retreat. So there's this idea of living together in an ethical community and having a whole set of structures or rituals that help you support you with the vows and commitments themselves. We don't have that here, which is, I think, actually kind of sad because we're not ordained people. But as lay people, we don't sort of have these landmark milestones or rituals or celebrations of our vows and commitments, which help you keep them. They help you know what they are, and they help you live them. So for instance, Sojung is twice a month, where when you're in a community twice a month, to keep the community going, it's so smart. It's your own kind of group therapy. Is on the full moon and new moon, everyone gets together and you all share, you stand up and say about all the vows that you've broken. So it's a way of actually being ethically accountable to everyone in your community. So, it's almost like group work where you just stand up and you're just like, well, hey, when I'm like, you've been living with me the last 2 weeks, I haven't been cleaning, I've been in a bad mood, I've been yelling at people, I've been sleeping, I've been a bad monk. And everyone's like, yeah, we know. It's like, okay, Mike, you're next. And you kind of go around, but it's a way of letting out all that energy, because everyone thinks that anyway. Like, oh, that Matthew guy thinks he's a good monk. We know he's a super phony, blah, blah, blah. And it's a way, and then it's by standing up and being accountable, you're also saying to the community, well, this is where I have to try harder. These are the vows I don't keep. This is where we have to try harder. And it's a witness. The whole point with ethics, as Jacques Lacan says, the cure is in the symbolic, not the imaginary. In other words, ethics, the cure of ethics is always before other people. Being ethical by yourself, you can promise yourself all you want, but if no one's holding you to account, if you're not being witnessed by other people, whether you're a good or a bad person, it doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't really catch. Whereas when you're doing Sojung, it's before the whole community. So you have to live by your words and your thoughts and your actions in front of other people, right? So we don't have that, unfortunately. I've often thought it would be nice in a Buddhist community like ours to almost have group work where once a month we met to work on our vows. You'd have to have it almost like a recovery group, whereas you don't have crosstalk. There'd have to be very specific rules. So it's not like you're there and I stand up and like, it's been hard this last month, and everyone at the temple's like, yeah, man, we don't like you, you're such a phony. And then it's like, I'm not coming to this thing again. Like, then it wouldn't work, right? Like, it has to be a safe space, because when you're working with vows, what you'll see when we get into them, they are really work with the deepest, most vulnerable, messed up parts of yourselves. So this is why Vinaya is actually, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is the hardest work you do as a Buddhist, is your vows, your commitments, your Vinaya. All the other stuff is all the other stuff depends on it. But all the other stuff is so fun to do. And oh my God, Tantra practice and pujas, and I meditate, I love Vipassana. But the hard work is your vows and commitments. The hard work is changing, self-overcoming. The hard work is purifying your negative mind, because all your negativities come from somewhere. They come from deep, deep hurts and sufferings, like from your childhood, from past lives and so forth. So this is the hardest work. And this is, I always know, this is why, I'm being a little cynical here, but I've been in Dharma for 30 years. I've seen a lot, but this is why for a lot of Buddhist movements, Western Buddhism, all, like retreats and stuff, ethics is always conspicuously absent. It's always, oh, we're just teaching mindfulness. We're not teaching, oh, we're going to do this puja, we're not doing this. And there's a good reason that this is the hard work. This is when you tell people, oh, we're doing a retreat on Vinaya. Oh man, I ain't going to that, because it's so hard. This is like really, really the hardest therapy that you'll ever do. But this is also where you make the biggest breakthroughs, the biggest self-overcomings, the biggest realizations in your life is working with your own Vinaya, with your vows and commitments. So I'm just saying, I wish we had more of an external container like that for, I'm just sort of saying this, putting this out there, to have something like a Sojung or almost like group where we could work on our vows together, because you need help with them. Just like, what it's like living with family, the issues you have with your parents or your kids, or neighbors, like living with other people's hard, working with other people's really hard. And so vows are hard. Vows are about how you treat yourself and how you treat other people. So we need that help. You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it alone. Okay, oh my goodness, like I'm gonna have to do a lot of this next week too. I thought I'd be able to get through this all in one go, but you can see how deep it is. Okay, starting with the basis of the Vinaya, which is the Prati Moksha, or freedom or liberation vows. Vows of individual freedom. So I'm going to do a brief introduction of these. We'll do a little bit more next week. Then we'll get into the actual vows themselves and the actual sort of teachings around them. So the base vows, sort of lay vows, if you become a Buddhist, go to Buddhist center and you say, hey, I want to become a Buddhist, wherever it is, doesn't matter the tradition, Vajrayana, Theravada, Mahayana traditions, once you sort of get serious, the community there, the teachers will say, okay, you have to take the 5 lay vows. Like this is, you have to sort of start with the Pratimoksha or liberation vows. The vows, these vows are commitments that you take that will, for the first time in your life, bring freedom in your life. They will start to free you and tame your mind. Tame your mind, so free you from yourself, liberate you from your own worst enemy, which is yourself. Okay, this is the key to letting yourself out of the jail of your negative mind here. So vows of individual freedom, this basically are the ones refraining from hurting others and of course, from hurting yourself. Also, from the freedom from the basis of hurting others. So it actually attacks the root of these bad behaviors. It gets at the delusions that motivate these sort of negative behaviors that hurt people. Okay, and they are done for the reason or motivation of renunciation. In other words, you are renouncing true sufferings. You are sort of attacking or saying no to the root of your suffering here. Okay, we see Dharmabhadra says that in particular, when we're working on the Pratimoksha vows, they end up attacking, if we can say, I'll just end on here. In Buddhism, of course, once you get to the freedom vows, which I'll tell you what they are, we'll get in them, of course, is not killing, refrain from killing, refrain from stealing, refrain from lying, refrain from taking intoxicants, which in a big sense, like anything that's sort of distracting your mind, and sexual misconduct. So there's 5 things. They're very, very deep. We're going to spend some time with each of these 5, but also tied to these are, of course, are what they call the 10 non-virtues. Okay, so which is 3 of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. So again, the 10 non-virtues connected to the 5 freedom vows here, which is we refrain from killing, we refrain from stealing, we refrain from sexual misconduct. That's the 3 negative body things. The 3 negative speech things is we refrain from hurtful speech, from divisive speech, from lying, and from gossiping. Okay, so those, we look at those and we're like, wow, that's a lot. We do a lot of these things. And then the 3 mental negative karmas is basically wrong view, which is basically, you could say wrong view. There's all sorts of ideologies and stuff that cause, or doctrines or ideas that cause suffering. But basically the ones, when we say wrong view, is anything denying karma and denying emptiness, because those go together, as we've been saying through our courses. Vows, our Buddhist vows and commitments, or Vinaya, depends upon an understanding of karma and emptiness. We wouldn't be doing all this if we didn't understand karma, actions and consequences. So if you deny those, then you won't actually be an ethical person or want to do ethics. You won't get into the liberation vows in the first place. So that's why wrong view is seen as a real one of the 10 non-virtues. The other one is malice, which is wanting anyone to suffer. Okay, basically, anytime you're like, I hate that guy, I just wish he'd fall down a flight of stairs and break his neck. Anytime you have a thought like that, that's malice. Or even just having a negative thought, I don't like that guy, like that, and you're just sending that bad energy out in your mind. That's malice. And then covetousness is the other one, wanting what other people have, being jealous, wanting things, that sort of attached energy. So Dharmabhadra, famous Galupa Lama, says that basically these three mental karmas end up becoming the basis of all the other karmas. In other words, if we have this ignorant mind that's not mindful, not paying attention to emptiness and karma, if we have this mind that's completely attached, covetousness and grasping like a hungry ghost, if we have this spiteful, negative, mean-spirited malice mind, then it's easier to lie, kill, gossip, steal. All that stuff's coming from that negative energy. You know, the body karmas and the speech karmas require planning. You actually like to kill someone or lying or gossip. It's something you have to enact or sort of do, sort of manifest as an action. Whereas they always say with the mind karmas, just having them's enough. Like just being mean-spirited, spiteful, just being covetous, you're already producing or manifesting that energy of karma just by having those thoughts. So the pratimoksha vow, then, what we're going to see is by doing those, we're going to be attacking those three mental karmas at the root. They're the root of all of our other bad karmas. We're going to be working with those ones by taking the pratimoksha vows. Okay, how about we end there for today? I wanted to get through so much stuff today, but I can see it's so deep. Does anyone have any questions or little comments just before we end here? Of course, there's no rush with this course. What I'll do is I'm going to break it down into sections where we'll go over a section and then we'll have a review, discussion, and sharing on it for all the vows. So I'm going to break them into pieces. So there's going to be a lot of time for sharing and for questions because this is just so practical, and I want to hear everyone's opinions and sharing with us as well, so it makes me learn. This is, you know, you're always a perpetual student with vows and commitments. But any commentary before, or questions, comments? Everybody good? Okay, good. Thank you. So there we go. And we'll just, I'll continue on next week on Saturday for another live class where we'll do a little bit, again, what it means, the benefits of keeping vows, and a tiny bit of an introduction to the Bodhisattva vows. Then what we'll do is, you can see I sent as an email, I just took some pictures from a book. There's different places where you can find these, where they have the vows, like the commitments of what it means, like refuge commitments and bodhisattva commitments, and then the the benefits of those commitments, and then the downfalls, or what it means to break those commitments or breaking your vows. So that's the main part of this course that we're going to go over, is all that. We'll start with the Buddhist commitments, like the refuge and bodhisattva commitments. These are vows you should be doing all the time. So that's kind of where the course is going. And then there'll be lots of time for questions and answers. Sound okay? Does that sound good? Okay, great, wonderful. Well, thank you for coming. Let's take a moment to dedicate this. I think that, again, just here Buddha is with us, and all the Buddhas I would expect are just sort of happy that we're taking a shot at this and studying this and really making an effort to bring this into our lives as the basis of our Buddhist practice. So we should rejoice on this and just think that by the blessings of all holy beings, all of our gurus, the Buddhas and Dakinis and so forth, the truth of causes and their effects, the truth of karma, our pure spiritual intention, bodhicitta, may all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. May all sentient beings get enlightened. Okay, thank you. Let me just press stop here.